Right, so can you swap a 787B engine into a Mazda RX7 FD? Now, the issue with that is it's ridiculously overpowered with a near 1-to-1 weight ratio and it's quite challenging to drive. Now, what happens is you take the engine out of a 787B, you slap it into an RX7, it's the equivalent of taking BBC. Right, now that I'm cancelled, I decided to go for a top speed run, and to be fair, I'm quite disappointed. I expected more of it. So on the damn hell, I got right about, 415, 416, going up to 417, and now once it straightens out, you will get a more realistic idea of what the top speed is, and it will reduce all the way down to maybe 415, 414, just around that range is where the car is comfortable. And yeah, I expected a bit more speed. So I decided to take the car for a little makeover, change the color a little bit. Put the legendary color, my signature color, Ruby Stone. Now, I definitely don't steal that from Porsche. Well, I have, but I don't care. I just really like this reddish pink color. I know, it just resonates with me quite nicely. So, yeah, I will take the car for a test run and see what happens, because it's a pretty car. Look at it, it's absolutely stunning, but there is a devil on the inside and I'm not excited for what it can do. So yeah, we got Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, probably one of my favorite tracks, but not excited to drive it with this car specifically. And I've had this car for quite a while, a couple months, and before update 1.50 it was undrivable. The car would glitch out and you would just be flung into any barrier, but now they made it more drivable, and you can see I could actually somewhat push without worrying about flying into a fucking barrier at fucking Mach Jesus. And you can see going into turn 1, I'm very wary of every single input. This car accelerates very nicely. It's very fast on acceleration, faster than a lot of cars. Definitely faster than GT3, maybe even faster than Le Mans, LMP1, GR1, yeah, GR1. I didn't do a side-by-side, comparison test, but it does feel very fast, once you get on the throttle, it picks up immediately. And it is actually somewhat faster than GT3 cars, again, depending on track. But that acceleration is insane. Once you floor it, it just picks up and flies. Once that turbo gets spooling up, you fly. You basically take off into the atmosphere. And yeah, turning this car, it's not very hard. You do have a lot of speed that you have to bleed off, so you have to be very cautious when braking, and you have to brake way earlier than where you would usually brake in a GT3 car going on a similar speed, just because you don't have that downforce element. But you make that speed up basically once you go on the straight. You can see approaching 350, and that's where I hit the brake. That's where I hit the brake pedal. And you can see it's very, the car was just very eager to oversteer into oblivion and just to fly off. But I used my driving Aikido to keep the car on track and, not die. And yeah, you can see the car is very toxic, especially on hilly corners. It's good on the straight, but you have to be very cautious in any sort of corner. So yeah, we got a 116, which is faster than GR4. I think a little faster than GR3, I'm not sure exactly. So, since I like torturing myself, I decided to drive it on a Nürburgring. Yes, the green hell. Let's say it did not go to plan. So, starting into turn 1, you basically have to brake so early just to get that rotation, because otherwise it either understeer or oversteer into oblivion. You have to drive it very precisely, and you have to be forgiving. The car itself is not forgiving. You have to forgive the car for fucking you up. So yeah, you do have to change your driving style in a lot of ways that makes the car more forgiving to drive, or no, makes the car mess up less, because yeah, you will mess up. You can see I'm not pushing as hard as I could be, and for a good reason. This car does not like curbs, and this track is very tight, which means if I go off, touch a curb, I basically fly into a wall, and I don't really want that. I just want to get a clean lap, just to get an idea of how fast this car is. Now going with the street, you can see just how fast the acceleration picks up, and you can see it's rapid, it's fast, and you need to have a lot of trust in the car on this corner, because you can see it's very difficult to do, especially with such speed and such acceleration, and you find yourself forcing the car to just stay on track. It's fighting to keep the car on track is one thing, and driving it fast is another thing, and you have to do the best of both in order to drive this car, because it's a fight to keep it on track. As you can see, nearly oversteering, having to micro correct my way everywhere. I'm making micro adjustments here and there just to keep the car on track, and I'm not even trying to push. All I want to do is keep the car on track at this point. And yeah, to say it's silly is actually no, it's quite fun to drive. It's not as bad as it thought it would be, or not as bad as it was before the update, because before the update 1.50 it just wasn't possible to drive. Anything above 250, you just oversteer into oblivion and die. It was genuinely how the car was driven. There was a glitch in the suspension which screwed you up pretty heavily, but yeah, it was fixed, so it's very enjoyable to drive in a weird way. It's very rewarding when you drive the car and not get it off track. You don't even have to push it, you just have to keep it on track, and yeah, basically not die because of death, because Another thing about this car is if you keep an eye on my throttle, you can see I'm being very precise, or again, very forgiving with my inputs. I'm not putting too much inputs because yeah, oversteer is very real and you will power slide your way into any corner and you have to lift off a lot. And this was my first skill issue demonstration, and it won't be the only one because again, this car is just impossible to drive on this track. I think I could drive it. I mean, I do have the skill to drive it, but I just needed way more practice, and it's just a whole new thing to me. You cannot go on curbs, and you don't have any downforce, so like most of the car's grip is purely mechanical. So you know, it's another thing you cannot rely on, because most of the cars that drive on Nürburgring, me personally, I don't drive cars that don't have downforce. So you know, GR4 is the least downforce category I would drive, and then you know, I would do like GR3, 2, 1. The more downforce, the better for me. I really appreciate cars with a lot of downforce, as you know, I love pushing the cars to their limit, and I find it easier to do with downforce cars. But we're no street car with barely a wing and a splitter, so yeah, you don't have the downforce luxury you would want from other cars. And yeah, driving this car is like taking BBC. It's not enjoyable unless you're very nasty, and I won't judge if you do, but sometimes it's fun, but it's horrendous. It's horrible at the end. It's always bad. You can only drive it in a straight line. I mean, you could drive it sometimes in the corners, but again, you have to be very cautious. And I'm not I'm not really a fan of mechanical grip cars. And yeah, the suspension does help. It's very stiff and keeps the car on track. Doing it to the stock suspension is impossible, but this car does make jumps, by the way. And in certain track conditions, you know, on Egan Node 1 and the Nürburgring, there's a couple areas where it would make the car jump, like literally have the front lift off, which is another unwelcome but fun aspect of this car. But yeah, overall it's hell. It's not fun to drive. But again, me personally, I don't judge. If you like it, you like it. I mean, it's you, man. It's not me. But yeah, do I find myself driving this car? Not really. I'll probably just park it in my garage and completely forget about it, because it's not the fastest car in a straight line. And the only thing about it that would make me drive it is, you know, the acceleration from anything above 100 kilometers onwards, and under 100 kilometers it will get outpaced by any all-wheel drive car, and that's just reality. Another reason why I would drive it is the sound of the car. It's, you know, it's a very nice sound. You know, you don't get to hear a 787B engine all the time, and having it in a road car is fun. So I'll probably down tune the car, to be fair. If I want to drive it, I'll probably down tune it because it is tuned to the max. So what I will do is just have a power limiter or remove the turbo, because yeah, it could be a quality of life upgrade with removing the turbo, because you don't have to worry about the turbo lag, and you would reduce by maybe like I don't know, a couple hundred horsepower at least. Now going into this corner, I'm very glad that I'm almost done with the track, because there isn't much left. This is probably one of my favorite sections of the track. It's, you know, only fast sweeping corners up until the corners leading to the Dottinger Straight. There is just one tight corner before, and you can see I go ahead to demonstrate my lack of skill, or skill issue. Yeah, happens. This car, it does glitch sometimes, because to be fair, the developers never really intended for this car to have this much power, and the suspension just cannot handle it. It's not like having a GR3 car with the same combo. I mean, you could put this car in a GR3 car and probably enjoy it, not gonna lie. But you know, in this car, it's not the case. And yeah, you can see here is where my favorite section. It's just very smooth, very flowing, very fast. And I go on to demonstrate a third skill issue. I mean, I'm not gonna maul about the car anymore. You know how this car is like to drive, and go ahead and try it if you're gonna blow like 2 mil credits on it, because if I'm correct, you need just about 1.5 mil credits just to swap the engine alone, let alone tuning the car with all the best parts. And you can see me fighting a bit of snapovers here, but you know, here I am going onto the Dottinger Straight, and you can see just how fast the acceleration picks up. Anything over 100 up until 400 is like crazy fast acceleration. It just picks up and keeps on delivering. It just goes up and up and up and up, and it's just really good. But to be fair, the acceleration does begin to slow down at, you know, high 4th gear or 5th gear especially. Once you reach just about 350, anything above 350, that's when the acceleration starts slowing down. And yeah, I demonstrate another skill issue, and there was no recovering that. I basically, yeah, I'm done. I'm cooked. And yeah, the game does reset me all the way back, but I didn't let that stop me. I just, you know, go on to complete my lap, because it's still faster than every single road car, basically, due to obvious reasons. With a near 1-to-1 ratio, I mean, it's crazy car. And I think it's 1.15 ratio to power to weight. I'm not sure, but I mean, it does show in PS, power to PS ratio, it's 1-to-1. But power to weight, if you count on horsepower, it is I think 1.15. And I do complete my lap in a 6:55.6, which is faster than most cars.